Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Chad Ingram, who is the founder and CEO of Distro. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back.
Yeah, you were here about a year ago, and we had a good time, good chat, talked some business, talked some racing.
We did.
And thank you for taking the time to join again.
Yeah.
All right, so we will talk a little bit of racing. We can't do that exclusively on this, but you are a glutton for punishment, or you just really enjoy being an entrepreneur, right? Because we're going to talk a little bit about Distro.
Yeah. Yep.
Distro.
But I would say like 20% of the times people say distro, which throws me off a little bit. But distro is the proper way to say it.
It's your company. You got to say what the proper way is. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Distro is a marketplace for companies here in the U.S., tech companies here in the U.S. to hire software engineers around the globe. So, qualified developers join the platform, go through a little bit of vetting to make sure they're, a good fit and get seeded into our database. And then they're available to be hired by, companies here in the U.S. that need them. It's just a crazy market right now if you're trying to either, keep the team that you have or hire anybody new. It's just a crazy, crazy time.
Yeah. I may have heard once or 5 million times over the last 7 years about these problems, right? And then, compounded during COVID, curveball here.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, the overall underlying problem does not go away.
No.
And so you stated in a couple of sentences like what your business model is and what value you're providing. Obviously, there's a lot more to that, right? Pain points are fairly well known in that community of hiring the right people, right talent. And we were chatting a little bit before. It's either a dev shop or you pay a lot of money for good developers. So solutions in entrepreneurship and what you guys are thinking about to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to get creative. I mean, I'm hearing multiple stories of software developers that are, at an early stage tech company are making like $150,000 to $170,000 a year, and there's a qualified senior here in the U.S. And then now that Twitter and Facebook and others are hiring remote people. I mean, I had a neighbor who was just offered a job to work remotely for Twitter for $350,000 a year.
Wow.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, great for him in this case, but I'm sorry, the seed stage and Series A stage companies here, even the Series B stage companies here, like, they just can't keep doing that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And competing with that. And now that everyone's working remotely, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
I think in 2019, there was a research group that came out and said that for every computer science graduate that was graduating, there are 10 open roles in tech. And that was in 2019, even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's a large growing problem.
Yeah. And you probably felt that pain at several points over your journey, right?
Right at Jump. In fact, that's kind of one of the things that I share with people or, investors or prospective customers. When I was building Jump, our payroll was about a little under $1 million a month, which was a lot. And about a third of that was software developers. And I remember after we were acquired, I was like, do we need to do that again? Like, is there a better way? Because even then, I remember, we competed against, a couple of companies in the Valley, including Podium, and they were killing it. They had raised like 90 something million, and we had just raised like 6 million or so. And so they had raised a lot more. They were a little bit ahead of us. And literally, I had a developer come across the parking lot after an intro interview with one of their team members with an offer letter in hand for like $40,000 a year more than we were paying him at the time. What do you do? And that was then.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've heard horror stories of San Francisco, and so like we got to get creative. And I think some companies are. I mean, 5 years ago, to hear a CTO exploring the idea of hiring a dev shop was just, it was just very, very unique. Like, that just didn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
And now I hear it all the time. Oh, well, we've been using this offshore group for a month or a year, and because they're just out of sheer necessity, right? Like you have customers that need to be taken care of. You gotta work on the product, and there's only so much they could do. So they hire them, and they just have a rough experience. If you go to a dev shop, like you have no creative control. You can't interact with the developers on Slack and on, in your email. They're not attending your company stand-ups. They're not understanding the overall purpose of their product that's being built. You just kind of say, well, let's come up with like some small project that they could work on by themselves, and then hopefully it works out when they ship it in 6 months.
Yeah. And
chances are that doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're working on solving that problem.
Okay. And what are some of those ways that you guys will solve that problem? And then how do you guys monetize your product, your company? What's the model?
Yeah, so the model is really interesting. So we try to not complicate things too much. So we have developers that come to Distro and apply to Distro. When they apply, they're essentially sort of pre-vetted through some account managers, and we're looking for like a certain qualification. If they're unqualified, they're not even available in the database. So English, so everyone takes, an English assessment. They don't even pass that. They're not an option. We say, come back in 6 months and, maybe we'll let you in again or something.
Mm-hmm.
So once they get to that point, now they're available to be interviewed. And then we'll have customers come to us, and the customers will then provide us with a job description. And after they've signed a user agreement, and for us, it's all month to month. So we don't get paid anything until you hire somebody.
Okay.
So really simple. So like there's no friction in even trying it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, we take the job description and pair that with our database of qualifications and resumes and data provided by the developers. And so when there's a match, we'll introduce them, and then they'll run their whole interview process, just like you would do with, Sarah or Frank in the US.
Yeah.
So you would do like a peer interview, you would do your, hiring manager interview, your live coding interview, check all of their qualifications. And then if you want to hire them, Distro simply, predetermines a price for this developer based on their geography, experience, and so on. And we simply take a cut out of that, amount. And so we get paid out of that. So you don't have to worry about paying like a separate subscription fee or anything like that to Distro. So everyone gets paid.
Yeah. So if it all works out, let's say Frank and Sarah and little Jimmy Lipper were hired,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to pull a little bit from those three each month.
Correct.
And you could do 1 or 10 or more. Right?
Exactly. In fact, all but maybe 1 or 2 customers have expanded since they started. So what we know is when somebody hires 1 or 2 people or 3 people to start, they're likely going to hire more because they're able to find and place people so much faster than they would alternatively with their own recruiting efforts, because all of the good developers are working somewhere.
Yeah.
Nobody's just applying. Like we had one customer who started, 3 or 4 months ago. And they told us when we started out, they said in 6 months, they had 4 open roles. And in 6 months, they had 2 people apply, like 2. And that was from their recruiters trying to get them to apply.
Yeah.
And so anyway, and they filled their roles with us in 3 weeks or so. So
because you have it
it
all
was
there.
ready to go. Yeah. And then if they wanted to pull, yeah, exactly. And so and the quality of people forget there's good and bad everywhere you go. So you just have to know, in finding the right people. And ultimately, if you're hiring, you're only hiring who you want to hire. Nobody's forcing it on you. At a dev shop, you sign a contract and they just kind of put somebody there.
Yeah.
So if they don't work out, it's maybe you didn't hire the right person.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So the friction being taken out is obviously the database is with the developers, companies with their needs. Other friction points would be like negotiations, stock options, all of that.
Right.
But the friction's taken out as well because it's all right here.
Exactly.
And they're working for cash.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and they're making great money. We're paying them super, super well, right? And when you hire somebody here, everyone here knows the rules, right? You hire, then you pay your matching payroll tax. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Then you're going to pay your benefits on top of that. Most companies are covering all benefits now. And then stock options. When you add all of those things, and then non-traditional benefits, right? Like we've talked about Benny in the past, things like that, it just gets very, very expensive. And so, this provides a method to save a lot of money on that, so we tell people candidly, it's more expensive than hiring a dev shop, but quite a bit less than hiring, here in the US. And you're able to just find people.
Yeah.
Like we had somebody that, finding and hiring a software engineer is hard enough. Imagine trying to find one who's very particular with like a very particular skill set.
Yeah.
We had one customer who was looking for a graphics, like a computer graphics engineer. And this is very unique. And we were even kind of like, do we have that? Is there somebody in our database? And there wasn't, but we were able to get one in like, I don't know, I think they made that hire in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's
Very cool.
pretty exciting.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to work for Ingram Racing,
Right.
Racing
Team.
Ingram Racing Team, but they needed to fly fish the Madison every day, they would be a good fit, right? Because they could achieve both of their life goals
Yeah.
and still work for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the roles are remote, and Distro, like for us, we don't care about the geography, right? Again, if you're working at a dev shop, like a dev shop's like, all right, well, we're stationed in Mexico City, so we're recruiting out of Mexico and even Mexico City. For us, we don't care where you are. So, if you're in Argentina or if you're in Canada or if you're in, anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like Guayaquil or Ecuador, it's just going to be finding and hiring the best people because they're remote, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You as a company would decide, well, what time zones are we comfortable with? You know, so and it's just trade-offs.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And as you build out your team, you've got experience in all of this now, building out the team, fundraising, scaling and growing. Where are you guys now in this process, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have, how many people do we have right now? There's 5 of us here. I would say 6, actually. We just had somebody who was part-time and then brought them on. And then we have 3 of our own team members, overseas. So, because we could use our same platform to hire our own team members, which is really nice. So we have a few of our own team members overseas. So it'd be 9 or 10 of us. And it's an exciting time because we all get to do different things, different days. Like some days, like we're working across the board on different things, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So the thing that, I don't know, you asked what I'm looking forward to, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What's because this isn't your first rodeo.
No.
So if you were excited in the last one and it turned out to be the worst part.
Yeah.
Anyways, what are you most excited about as you build this out?
I'm excited to see it at scale. I think that we've had some feedback from investors, which now you're going to ask me about that. We've had some feedback from potential investors, which is like, well, how does this look at scale? Like at what points does, because when you have a marketplace, you have people inherently on either side, right? Buying and selling, and how does that look at scale? And what points of what you're doing are automated, and where do you introduce human, right? Human touch or whatever. And I think back to like this idea of doing things that don't scale. And so today we try to learn as much as we can through customer feedback, developer feedback, user feedback, and then try and iterate very, very quickly on what it is that we're doing. And so I'm excited to kind of see how that scales and what components that we're able to automate to make an even better user experience. Like when we got started, we were really like, all right, what are the biggest pain points? And the first pain point was, obviously payments, being able to pay people around the globe.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And so building that technology and then also building the actual offering and hiring component is a big one. But we think that there's something really big about matching.
Yeah.
Like how to pair. I can almost think like a Tinder of,
Yeah.
finding technical people.
Yeah.
So that will be kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm really looking forward to like just seeing the good people that we end up hiring. Like we've started hiring people, and that's really exciting again,
Yeah.
like a little nerve-wracking, but exciting nonetheless,
Yeah. And with all things that you do repetitive, whether it's car racing or playing the piano or building a business, you see patterns a little bit quicker than you did the previous time. What patterns are the same and which ones are new this go around?
What patterns are the same? One pattern that seems the same is helping people sort of find their groove when they join a team.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of like that new kid in school that shows up on campus and they're like, where's the lunchroom?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? And it's hard at the same time because there's a lot to do in different areas. And so sometimes the job changes a little bit. But assembling a team is interesting because especially the early team, it's kind of like, it sounds cliche, but it's kind of like a family. Like you're spending so much time with these people and like learning the different nuances of personalities and things that make people tick. And so definitely seeing some patterns there in trying to find what works for different people, Anyway, so that's been kind of interesting.
Yeah. All things being equal, as you build, new companies, there's going to be new people and they all have different personalities. So
right.
That's a good answer. All right. We might as well talk a little bit about racing.
Yeah. So do you want to know how my season went last year? All right. This might sound like a little bit of bragging, but I was very surprised. Okay, yeah. So Ingram Racing is, long distance and endurance racing, off-road racing. So we'll race. Short races are like 200 miles continuous. Longer races, like in about 3 weeks, we'll be heading to Vegas to Reno. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we've raced from the outside of Vegas, the middle of nowhere, all the way up to Reno in one shot, and I'll be in the car for, depending on how the race goes, 12 to 14 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a long one.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of races we do. Some people, recognize if you say something like the Baja 1000, that type of racing.
Yeah.
So, and I race a really modified UTV. About maybe 10% of the car is from the original car.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah. So they'll go, car weighs like 2,400 pounds and we'll go to 107, 108 miles an hour on the dirt.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, now brag about your
yeah.
season.
So, because we talked last season, and it was my first season. So we raced it out, and out of 4 races, we ended up coming in second for the series.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I just wanted to finish each race. So
Yeah.
but we did all right.
That's awesome.
So it was fun.
That is, I assume you lose a lot of pounds over that.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. Like when you get out of the car, just totally exhausted. Yeah. Have you ever driven home at night, like late at night, and you get home after like, half hour or something, and you kind of don't remember driving home?
Yeah.
Imagine doing that, like 80 miles an hour for like 3 hours. Because when you get to the end, like towards the end of the race, you just kind of like, you start zoning out. And I drive with a co-driver who's a navigator.
Yeah.
So he's like reading the GPS and communicating with the pit and everything.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like talking to me to keep me going.
Yeah. It's a long, long time to maintain focus.
It is. It is.
Well, cool. Thank you so much, Chad, for joining. I like the story one because you have a fun spin on entrepreneurship. You make it very simple and fun. And it is going to solve a lot of pain points. And if you guys hit on this even half as well as you'd want, I think you're racing a winner here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
It's exciting. Thanks for having me.
You bet.